to Kai. Chapter 6. The trip back to the temple was silent, save for the pain groans of Dravok as Master Elan helped to stop his bleeding. Kukuri sat hunched in her seat. As she looked at Donwi, who flew with his eyes fixed ahead, a stern look etched onto his face. The speeder landed as Elan picked Kyrol up and rushed him up the temple steps and inside. Kukuri attempted to follow, but stopped in her tracks when Donwi spoke.
Kukuri!
Kukuri winced and slowly turned to Donwi, with her face pointed to the ground.
You disobeyed me, Padawan. What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm sorry, Master. We just wanted to help.
Donwi looked sternly at his student.
Help how? Look what happened. Kyrol is injured. We've lost our lead on Balashud, not to mention the missing speeder bike that was recklessly abandoned.
Kukuri's eyes stung with tears as she pushed past Donwi and ran inside. Donwi sighed and held his forehead as he walked after her. Inside, Kyrol was being tended to by medical droids as they cleaned his wounds and began to patch him up. Elan sighed sadly and stepped outside, bumping into Kukuri, who looked up at him briefly before running past the Nalirog Jedi. Moments later, Donwi ran by as Elan held his arm.
Donwi.
Donwi sighed and slicked his hair back.
How is Kyrol?
He'll be all right. Some scars, but he'll be back on his feet by tomorrow. Donwi, don't be too harsh on her.
Elan, she disobeyed orders and could have gotten herself
A fact I'm sure you've made quite apparent to her from what I just saw. You were once a Padawan yourself, Donwi. Reckless, undisciplined. But your heart was in the right place. Kukuri wasn't trying to spite you. She wanted to help you. Perhaps it's time you told her about what happened with Balashud.
Donwi nodded in silence and went after Kukuri. Kukuri ran to her quarters and closed the door, falling onto her pillow in sadness and shame. It wasn't long before her door opened and she felt a hand on her back. Wiping her tears, she looked up and saw Donwi sitting by her side, with his head hanging low.
I know you were just trying to help Kukuri. But what you did, you could have been killed. I will not bury you, Kukuri. I can't.
Kukuri looked at Donwi with a sorrowful gaze as Donwi straightened up.
It's time I told you about Balashud.
Kukuri listened intently.
It's important that you understand, Kukuri. You were not my first Padawan. Before I found you, my apprentice was a young man named Sorvin. I was young, foolish. I believed I could train him to be a great Jedi. 16 years ago, Sorvin and myself were sent by the Council to the Outer Rim. The locals of Bindari called for our aid in stopping a band of gangsters who had been terrorizing the locals. When we talked to the citizens, we learned that the one in charge of this group was a Hutt named Balashud. Dealing with his mercenaries proved difficult. We had him cornered in his hideout. He feigned surrender. I didn't trust him for a moment, but Sorvin insisted he would go quietly. He went to restrain him. What we failed to notice was the trap he had set. Before I could do anything, Balashud released a serpent from beneath his throne. It struck Sorvin. He just screamed. I tried to help him. Balashud's reinforcements arrived, and in the chaos, Balashud escaped. I tried desperately to save Sorvin, but it was too late.
Donwi looked into Kukuri's eyes as a single tear flowed down his cheek and into his beard.
I tried searching for Balashut in the years to follow. When he was eventually caught, I thought I would have a sense of relief or justice. But all I felt was emptiness. The lonesome silence of a master without a pupil to teach.
Kukuri held his hand in hers.
You did everything you could have. Sorvin died trying to stop an evil monster. You don't have anything to be ashamed of, Master.
Dunwee's gaze faltered as he looked to the floor.
As a Jedi, I have suffered more than my share of injuries. I've been shot, stabbed, burned. I've nearly frozen to death. None was greater than the pain I felt as I buried my Padawan, knowing that I failed him.
Kukuri slowly held her master's shoulders as he trembled.
This is why I don't want you involving yourself, Kukuri. I can't put you in that danger. I can't lose you.
You won't lose me, Master. I'm by your side through whatever we face.
Dunwee looked at Kukuri and smiled softly, patting her hand.
I know, Kukuri. You should see the doctors about that scratch. Check in on Cairo while you're at it.
Yes, Master.
Kukuri hugged her master before going downstairs to the medical wing. Going inside, she was quickly tended to by a medical droid who applied a Bacta solution to her wound and covered it with a bandage. After she was tended to, she approached Dravok's bedside, where he sat, sipping a rejuvenating beverage.
Dravok?
Dravok looked to Kukuri, his face covered in thick bandages. Kukuri sighed and cupped her hands over her mouth and sat by his bedside.
This is all my fault. I'm so sorry, Kyrol.
Dravok scoffed.
For what? When I caught you sneaking out, I was about to follow them too. Besides, it could have easily been you who got used like a chew toy.
Kukuri looked at Kyrol and moved her hair from her face.
I'm glad it wasn't, though. You've got a prettier face.
Oh, shut up, you idiot.
Kukuri scoffed and chuckled as she threw a gauze pad at his face. Dravok chuckled and held his chest painfully.
Easy. Don't strain yourself. Just try to get some rest, okay?
Yeah, good idea. You okay?
Yeah, I'll be okay. Tomorrow will be better. It's like Master Donley says. There's always a silver lining in defeat. Let's just pick ourselves up and start again in the morning.
Okay. Good night, Princess.
Kukuri smirked.
Good night, Kryrol.
Kukuri left the medical wing and returned upstairs to her quarters and went to sleep. The dark dreams of the Conqueror were a haze of blurred lights and faded colors. Memories so distant and yet so vivid in their familiarity that he felt as though he could reach out and clutch them. Sholviakk, awaken, my friend. We have important business to discuss. The blood-red eyes of Sholviakk fluttered open, the light burning with a searing intensity. He was in a laboratory. Before him, the man who freed him from his slumber. Welcome back to the world of the living, Sholviakk.
Where am I?
Not your concern at the moment. You recognize this, yes? Heshmut held up the hilt of Sholviakk's lightsaber, the dark gray metal dented and worn with age. Sholviakk glared.
That is mine.
It is yours. And yet, I feel as though perhaps it's mine. Sholviakk tried to stand as his body crumpled beneath its own weight. What a change 1,000 years can make. You are in no shape to use this weapon at the present time, so I'll hold on to it for the time being. Sholviakk arched his neck backwards and glared at Heshmut.
Do you know to whom you speak with such insolence?
I speak to the man who once ravaged Suntai
and the Order of Tessara. Had you been successful, I would not be speaking to you right now.
Sholviakk's anger boiled inside of him, his words dripping with venom.
Repugnant worm! Had I my strength, I would tear your head from your body.
Oh, I believe you would.
But perhaps I can tempt you with an alternative. Heshmut knelt and looked at Sholviakk, who seethed in rage, gnashing his teeth.
Perhaps you wish to seek vengeance?
I will share my conquest with no one!
Conquest? Dear friend, the galaxy is no longer yours to take. Things have changed. As terrible as you may have been in the days long gone, you would hardly be a threat if the Jedi were to learn of your return, especially in your current state. After all, a Sith Lord would draw their attention all too easily.
Sith? I am no Sith. Why would I choose one dogma over another? I have no order. I serve no master. I am the master.
Heshmut quickly struck Sholviakk, whose stunned expression nearly made him laugh.
I don't much care what you call yourself, but I have use for you. You want the Tessarans dead. So do I.
Sholviakk looked at Heshmut.
You were cast aside from the Jedi from a very young age. They feared your power, the same way the Order of Tessara cast me aside. They saw my power, and they turned away, banished me to the wastes, where I grew stronger. The Tessarans are weak, mindless monks, and their time is at an end. And we can destroy them. You and me.
Sholviakk growled and looked down at his trembling hands.
The Tessarans imprisoned you in stasis, abandoned you to a fate worse than death. You want vengeance? We can help each other.
You presume to command me?
I presume nothing. I know that were you to have your strength back, you would kill me without a second thought. That's why I thought ahead.
Heshmut quickly stabbed a syringe into Sholviakk's neck.
What have you done?
I've injected you with a powerful poison that functions at the cellular level. I know that you Gendai are notoriously difficult to kill. But without an antidote, that poison will remain in your system, inhibiting your ability to regenerate from damage.
Sholviakk's eyes widened as Heshmut leaned in close.
I understand you have a primitive mind. But I'll be very forthright. Should I decide to cut you, you will bleed. Should I remove your fingers, they will not regrow. Should I remove your head, you will die. Are we clear?
Sholviakk stayed silent, but slowly laughed.
It's been a long time since I encountered anyone as devious as you. Very well. My hands are tied. When do we leave for Samtea?
Patience, patience, my friend. You're not thinking of the big picture. We must assemble resources, recruit followers, and most importantly, remain in the shadows.
Oh, you wish me to hide like a wounded calf hound? I have conquered worlds in my time.
If you were to engage the Tessarans right now, you would find yourself back in stasis before you knew it. We must wait for the right opportunity, and when it arrives, we strike. Heshmut handed the lightsaber over as Sholviakk slowly stood to his feet. Will you join me in this endeavor, O mighty Sholviakk? Will you see your enemies crushed beneath your boot and their blood spilled? Sholviakk gripped the hilt of his lightsaber, igniting it, staring into the deep blood-red blade as he smiled.
Yes. Let them dwell in ignorant bliss. The time will soon come when the Order of Tassara will be erased from history.